Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon or good evening, depending on where you're joining us from today. I want to welcome you to our webinar this morning. We're talking about CTV advertising and outcomes-based measurement. We have a lot of people joining us today, which is awesome. I wanted to give you a couple of announcements before we bring on the rest of our panel. So please leverage the chat. We'd love to hear from you throughout the event. Go ahead and let us know where you're dialing in from today. We like to kind of see everybody. We can't see your faces, so we'd love to see you on the chat. We also are going to have some question and answer period towards the end, and want to welcome you to ask your questions over in the Q&A tab, which is also to the right of your screen. So when you want to ask questions, you can jump over there. If you forget and ask questions in the chat, our community managers will move those over to the Q&A so we can make sure that we address them with the rest of the team. We also have a couple of polls that will pop up during the event and would love to have you answer those so that we can get those results in real time. And then let's see, the last thing is that the webinar will be recorded and available for on-demand access following the event, and we will give everyone that link. So at this time, I'd love to bring our panelists on and we'll introduce everyone and get started. Here we go. Awesome. Okay, so I want to introduce our speakers. We have Aubriana Lopez, Global Product Marketing at Samsung Ads, Amanda Jordan, Head of Device and TV Media at Sling TV and Dish Network, and Brooke Wilson, who is our Senior Client Success Manager here at Kochava. This is a really esteemed group of women. I'm super excited to be speaking with you today and glad that you joined us for this. I'd love to give everyone a chance to introduce themselves and share something about yourself. If we could start with Aubriana and then Amanda and Brooke.
Thanks, Kimberly. Very excited to be here today. Thank you to you and the rest of the Kochava team for having me. And I'm excited to be on this female powerhouse panel this afternoon. So I'm Aubriana Lopez. I'm with Samsung Ads. I've been there for 3 years. I head up our global product marketing and new product strategy. I oversee our data practice, so across our audiences, measurement, and insights. And a fun fact about me is I have moved 52 times, and I am now in New York. So hopefully I'll stay here for a while because I like it.
Awesome. Thanks, Aubriana. Welcome.
So my name is Amanda, and I head up our device and TV media team for Sling TV and Dish Network. So what that means is I oversee acquisition, marketing, budgets, and execution for upper funnel marketing initiatives like linear TV and CTV, and then any marketing with our OEM and OS partners. So I've been very, very inundated in this MMP space. A little fun fact about me is I was in a Mick Jagger video. So usually scores me some brownie points, but I was just an extra, extremely unidentifiable, but my first job was doing events and event marketing at Paramount Studios in Hollywood. And one day I was asked if I would help out with a music video. It ended up being a new group called Super Heavy, which was Mick Jagger, Joss Stone, and Damian Marley. So it was a very fun day. And like I said, usually gets me some brownie points.
That's awesome. That sounds super fun.
Hey everyone, I'm Brooke, and like Kimberly mentioned, I'm a Senior Client Success Manager here at Kochava. So I work with our clients on a day-to-day basis, supporting them with their measurement goals and making sure that they get the data that they need for campaigns. And I've seen the music video that Amanda
Really?
mentioned.
That's so cool. I love that. That's awesome.
But a fun fact about me, I've actually played violin since I was 8 years old, and it's something that I continue to do. I find it to be really relaxing. And I took on my first violin student this year, which has been a new challenge for me.
That's great. Well, great. Thank you all for being here. My name is Kimberly Manning. I'm VP of Marketing here at Kochava. And I really racked my brain to think of a fun fact. And what I really wanted to mention was how delighted I am that this is a female powerhouse panel. When we got on the first kind of kickoff meeting for this webinar many, many weeks ago, I think there were 9 people on the call and everyone was a woman, which is just very unusual for ad tech in general or the tech industry. And I wanted to just mention how remarkable it is and that it happened completely organically. This was not orchestrated at all. So just kudos to the women who are showing up every day and doing great work. And I've kind of followed the issue and the concern about lack of representation in the tech industry over many years. And it's just really fun to see this kind of thing happen. So super excited to be here with all of you and chatting about CTV today. So let's jump in. I'm gonna try to share my screen here. We've got a few slides. And let's see if this works. Looks like it is. This is great. We already went through these announcements. And you met the speakers. So we're going to start off by just talking about CTV advertising and how much this channel has grown just exponentially over the past few years. So there's a couple of stats up on the screen, but I want to kind of go back to maybe the pandemic where TV viewership just went up by like 60%. But interestingly, we had a lot of new technologies coming in. So the way people were watching TV has changed a lot. And now this year, we have seen for the first time, linear TV dropped below 50% of total. Connected TV has grabbed a lot of that eyeball space, I guess you could say. And then we just see on the stats here, CTV ad spend is up 14.4% in 2023. 1 in 3 consumers watch fast channels. And in 2023, CTV viewership surpassed linear TV. So that leap from small screen to big screen, the interaction of small screen and big screen is very interesting to our advertisers. And at the same time, this is a very fractured ecosystem. It's complicated. It has grown through different technologies over the last few years, and it's a little bit difficult to navigate. So we wanted to start by looking at the ecosystem as a whole. And we've got a slide here that just kind of overviews what that looks like. And I'd love to have Brooke, if you wouldn't mind, just kind of walk us through that ecosystem overview.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we're looking at here is sort of the flow from the advertiser to the consumer being the goal of most of our marketing campaigns. As an advertiser, you have an ad that you want to serve and you want to reach maybe a certain audience, a certain consumer, maybe it's just everyone. But to do that, you need to work with all of these different platforms. And there is a lot of different inventory options and device types that the ad could be served on and could be viewed on to then drive your consumer to do the action or view the television show or whatever it is that you want them to do in the end. So we kind of wanted to use this graphic to show what that looks like in a big picture sense. So up at the top, we have the advertiser. Obviously, I think that one's pretty self-explanatory. And then below that, we have all the inventory options and where these ads are being placed. So we have the OTT, or over the top for the acronym, advertising platforms, which we've divided into programmatic, platform direct, and publisher direct categories. You can see the breakout on the left. So programmatic is a huge space, and it's one that's constantly growing. But then direct, we have the actual platform direct. So platform companies, you can see Samsung right there at the top. These are device manufacturers who also own inventory space and are also network partners. When you have publisher direct, people like Sling TV also have ads. So there's a lot of different options. And one of the things that is kind of interesting here is that these categories were pretty well defined, especially at the beginning of CTV inventory becoming available and becoming something that advertisers were interested in. But they've become, the lines between them have blurred a lot. We see things like platforms having their own streaming options, their own TV shows and things that they are producing themselves. And so those lines between categories have started to blur as inventory expands and as the options just become a lot greater. Below that, we have the streaming services, which I think everyone's pretty familiar with. There are ads within depending on what kind of tier you're at within your streaming service of preference. You might have more or fewer ads. And so all of these different options allow advertisers a ton of configurability and a ton of choices when it comes to what kind of creatives they're running, what type of campaigns they're interested in. Below that, we have the devices themselves. So we've split out the CTV devices from non-CTV devices, just to carve out the idea of devices that are staying in the home. They're more stationary. These are TVs. They are media streaming devices that plug into TVs to make them smart TVs, video game consoles. These devices aren't moving around a ton. They're typically on a single IP address, and they're used by members of a household. And then in blue, you can see the non-CTV devices. So laptops, cell phones, tablets, iPads, that kind of thing. These are more easily carried around. They can be moved. They might be, used in the home, outside of the home. Then we have the advertiser. There are consumers at the bottom. So with all of these options, where Kochava comes in is with the measurement. So both the networks, the partners serving the ads, and the advertisers who are actually running these ads and created the creatives, they both need to know how these campaigns are doing so that we can have, equitable, fair payment and all of that. So that's where a partner like Kochava comes in. We are measuring the views on these TV devices. We're measuring clicks if they're available. And then we are using device identifiers to make that match and tell advertisers, you ran this campaign on your CTV partner. It drove this many impressions. Which action were you looking for? Maybe they're looking to drive the users to install their app. Maybe they're looking to drive users to purchase a certain meal at their restaurant. Maybe they have an app on the TV already and they're looking to drive users to watch a certain TV show. All of those things are trackable, and that's where Kochava comes in to provide the advertiser with insight into how well their campaigns are doing. And we also are able to support the networks with the infrastructure behind making sure those clicks and views are trackable, and providing the network with numbers as well, so that they can do things like optimization and knowing how well, what's going on, and just increasing visibility across the board.
Thank you, Brooke. That was really thorough and very helpful. And so let's take a look a little bit more at advertising over this ecosystem. So Aubriana, let's start with you. You're representing the OEMs with Samsung Ads. And I'd love to know how things have changed for advertisers and what's happening today from your perspective.
Yeah, I think that there's been so many changes that many of us are aware of in how consumers have viewed TV throughout the pandemic, and how that took a swing the other direction and now is settling somewhere in the middle. But I think what's really, interesting about Samsung specifically is, as an OEM, we play in many of these places in the ecosystem. Yes, we are a platform primarily, right, where you can come to us and have managed service or even work with us through our DSP directly. But we also happen to be a publisher. So we have our Samsung TV Plus, which is our fast offering. And I know we're going to talk more about that later. And we also offer up our inventory programmatically. So I think it's been more about removing the friction for an advertiser and how they enter into the CTV world and running advertising there, not only how they buy their media, but also how they measure it. So how do we create more of a cohesive measurement system, regardless of how they interact and purchase these ads and where they run them? And how do we level that playing field? So I think those are two key themes that I've seen beyond just the changes in consumption and how consumers are saying spending less time on linear traditional cable and moving more towards fast, or some of that SVOD and AVOD has been normalizing a bit and reaching maturity in the market.
That's great. And then Amanda, so Amanda's representing the streaming services, the publishers, as opposed to the hardware platforms. And if you want to share a little bit from your perspective, Amanda.
Yeah, absolutely. And more specifically, I'm representing the buying side. So the opposite side, where yes, Sling sells inventory, but my team and my job is to acquire subscribers, and that's by purchasing this inventory. So the bottom line is that the job of a media buyer has become much harder over the last several years. TV measurement and buying has never been easy, but now it's not just cable and broadcast. The number of TV providers in the US has increased from 3 in 1951, I think, to over 250 providers today. And everyone's in the game, from traditional studios to the networks to the platforms. And so the options with how to buy this media are more than ever. And you can buy CTV direct, you can buy it via DSP, you can buy it from an aggregator or from the platform partners. And each way of buying comes with different capabilities. And so the challenge is how to come up with a cohesive video strategy across not only CTV, but all of your videos, so linear and OLV, with the best pricing and the best measurement. So where a few years ago, CTV partners didn't have the scale or measurement capabilities they do today, we've come a long way, which has been really exciting, where now we can measure lower funnel metrics more holistically through new technology with MMP partners, ACR technology, and then things like pixel tracking. So it's been a lot of changes over the last several years, and it's come with a lot of challenges, but it's exciting.
For sure. So, Aubriana, you mentioned fast channels. We want to talk about fast channels as well. Can you explain what they are? You know, there's been an explosion of fast channels, what they are, how they are bolstering the total addressable market for OEM platforms.
Yes, so FAST stands for Free Ad Supported Television. And if you own a Samsung Smart TV, when you pull it out of the box, you basically have a ready to go cable service, right? It's our Samsung TV Plus. It behaves very much like you would scroll through your guide on a cable platform. And there is advertising, just like if you're watching linear television. So we've seen tremendous growth in our Samsung TV Plus app, and inclusive of it being 64% growth year over year in time spent viewing. So obviously we are seeing more time spent in FAST, and it is the #1 free ad supported television app on our Samsung televisions and top 5 on all of our smart TVs. So I think that just shows how we are, gaining, and not just Samsung, but I think that FAST in general is gaining traction. And like I said previously, I think that it's interesting how a lot of the AVOD and SVOD have started to reach some level of maturity, and so there's only so many subscription services or paid television services for connected TVs that subscribers are kind of willing to pay for these days, and they tend to kind of shift their attention and time consuming across those. So the FAST is a really nice benefit for both advertisers and viewers. But it's also highlighting, I think, the ability for us to provide more partnership services to our clients like Amanda and Sling, right? So,
Aubriana, would you also just define AVOD and SVOD for the audience as well? I know we throw around a lot of acronyms, and I want to make sure we're not leaving anybody behind in the discussion.
We do. So SVOD would be subscription video on demand, and AVOD would be advertising video on demand. And we're seeing some hybrid cases of this happen now, where you've got perhaps Hulu, for example, where you could have a fully paid advertising, no advertising whatsoever, and that's a subscription service, or you could have minimal advertising and pay a reduced fee. And we're seeing new players get into the advertising game, obviously, with Netflix and others. So definitely some shifts happening around that. But you've got the subscription and the advertising based.
Great, thank you. And then Amanda, do you want to talk about anything else on the fast channel side from your perspective as well?
I think Aubriana really hit it. I mean, at Sling, the nature of our business, it isn't creating unique content, it's distributing programming partner content. And like Aubriana said, our model has changed. We launched Free Stream this year, and really that aligns with our focus on acquiring programming to bring customers the most choice at the best value and as seamless as manner as possible. And so we're approaching the FAST service in a way that's unique to the market, because it is about giving customers choice and flexibility over that entertainment experience in a way that's device agnostic. So we make it easy for customers to switch between plans, to add and remove extras and standalone packages, and then to watch free content when they want as well. So we're really focused on kind of turning the model upside down on its head, where we're embracing churn almost, and we're embracing the idea that our customers may not need that year-round subscription, to Aubriana's point. They may not want to pay for a service when it's not a key moment like football. So we give them the ability to upgrade or downgrade as they see fit, and then watch free content when they don't see the need to be paying for a premium plan.
Makes sense. A lot of people changing the way they watch. I know that people hold out for certain series when they come out, and they really only want that service during that time. Yeah. Okay, let's jump over to discuss a little bit about outcomes-based measurement and what it is and how things have changed from the measurement perspective. I think, Brooke, I'd like to go back to you. If you could speak to this a little bit, how measurement is now able to prove the value of CTV advertising a little bit more and inform advertisers on how behaviors differ over this channel and kind of what's going on with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that outcomes-based measurement is something that historically we've talked about in a mobile context, because with being in the apps, you can have a direct connection based on a made from a click or impression to a install or to a post-install event within the app. And so it was sort of an idea that I think was just prevalent in that marketing approach, where networks were there were a lot of buying based on these outcomes. In the CTV space, that wasn't necessarily as easy to do right off the bat. Especially, we have all these views, but how do we actually track them? How do we prove that these certain actions are taking place downstream? With the tracking capabilities that we have, we can get impressions, we can get clicks off of the TV device, but then what if the action isn't on that same device? There's not going to be a device ID to tie them together. And this is kind of where Kochava, I think, has been, we've put a lot of thought into it, and we have been for a long time now, being able to offer this kind of measurement of actually tying the views that you're seeing on your television to these actions that your users or your consumers are taking. Whether that be within an app, whether that be within a restaurant, or on the TV device itself. And so having an MMP who can do things like IP-based attribution. So we know this television device is in a certain household. If we're driving them into their phone, that phone is probably in the same household if it's happening within the same, within a certain look back window or within a certain time frame. So we can potentially do matching based on that IP address. Regardless, having the point being, CTV campaigns, perhaps historically, we're looking more at just like, we're going to put a ton of these ads out, we're going to access a large audience, we're going to do our best, and we're just going to pay off of the number of impressions, the number of views that are being served. And the priority perhaps wasn't on actually connecting those views to these actions. And what we're seeing more and more, at least with the clients that I've been working with, is instead of just paying for those impressions and just caring about brand reach, we now need to prove value on these channels. And so to prove value, you need to use an MMP or have some kind of measurement to tie those views into these actions that you care about, your KPI values, whatever those may be. And that's where Kochava has really stepped up, because not only do we have the MMP services for our advertisers where we can do this attribution based on IP address, based on device IDs, there are a lot with all of the configurability when it comes to look back windows and all of that exciting stuff. But we also have the Pub Suite tool now, where we're helping these networks, particularly in the CTV space, actually use our infrastructure to sort of SAM themselves or become a self-attributing network, which is a concept that's pretty common in the mobile space again. So with the Pub Suite infrastructure, now the networks have a place to store and infrastructure to use to collect all of these clicks and views, and then actually perform attribution themselves. They're as a Pub Suite partner, they can integrate with Kochava as an MMP, with other MMPs as well, to actually make that claim request response system to attribute. And so the network has visibility into how their own campaigns are doing. They have access to device IDs for optimization purposes, but then they can also share that information out to the advertiser, much like we see in the mobile space, so that both sides of the equation have full, complete visibility. And with that Pub Suite tool offering, we've been building off of over 10 years of innovation and infrastructure on the MMP side. So we already sort of know how attribution works. And so we can transfer that over from the advertisers to the networks and now support the publisher platform side as well. And when you have both of those data sets, there are some really, really fun things that you can do, as long as the network partner and the advertiser are in agreement because we have all this data in one place. And so things like cross-device attribution, offering longer impression or view look-back windows are all things that we've seen with this advanced measurement program or the PubSuite publisher tool, which has been really exciting.
Thanks, Brooke.
I might have gotten away from your question a little bit, but
no, I think it's great, and I actually think a lot of the audience may not realize Kochava released Publisher Suite a couple of years ago to provide that measurement that we've been providing for many, many years to advertisers, so that publishers can now measure and prove the value of their premium inventory. And so it's been a bit of a game changer for a number of publishers, and it's been really exciting, particularly in the CTV space, to see that growth. I did want to, so you can see on your screen, outcomes-based measurement. We wanted to talk about what that is. These are some examples of the types of things that customers may want to measure to prove that their campaigns are working. And I know that there's been a move from CPM and unduplicated reach to judging performance based on the outcomes. And I wonder, Aubriana and Amanda, if you want to speak to that a little bit and what you're seeing with your customers.
Sure, happy to jump in here, Kimberly. I think when you think about advertising as a whole, it's really a funnel that I would typically divide into three parts, right? You've got the reach at the top, which is where I would say traditional linear television has played for eternity. And then, you've got more of that conversion, which I feel is where mobile has been able to do a tremendous job, right? At the lower end of the funnel. And in the middle, you've got more of that resonance play. So for Samsung, I think the beauty is that we have the actual capability to understand the data that's happening at the screen level, across partners, across entertainment. And that allows us to really engage with the viewers, but also provide the best opportunity for our advertisers to connect with those viewers based on specific outcomes that they would like to achieve. So we launched Smart Outcomes last year, which is a KPI-focused performance models. And there's a variety of them that we offer. So when you think of a brand, for example, you've got here the website visit and website activity. So you've got kind of that resonance for that website visit. And you've got that conversion where maybe it's a purchase or signing up for a loyalty program on that website. And then maybe more on the media and entertainment side of the business, for our content partners, we are offering more of a subscription type of a model, right? Where you can say somebody downloaded the app, installed the app, or spent significantly more time, which would be considered a subscription, right? So different things that we can do to help keep that consumer engaged with those applications and prevent churn. But also kind of help with that resonance and just making sure that they are continuing to engage with their viewers. So I think that's a big focus of mine and probably a passion, just kind of seeing how AI and ML have really upped the game for how we can utilize all these different signals, work with partners such as Kochava to kind of get that full view of what's happening across that conversion throughout the funnel. And feed those signals in so that we can create better propensity to convert based on specific goals that the advertisers have. So,
thank you.
Yeah, and at Sling and Dish, I mean, when we're talking about outcomes-based measurement, like that is our bread and butter. Every dollar we spend has to showcase a positive return on our investment. We are performance marketers to the core, and candidly, we don't have the luxury of purely brand budgets or reach buys for even our upper funnel marketing campaigns. So while we still are maximizing reach, ultimately we are judged on outcomes. And so one of the great things about being able to use CTV and being able to have measurement on CTV is that you can not only measure this video channel, but the other thing that was really exciting for me is that you can measure the halo effect across other linear TV and digital advertising. So for our CTV buys, and really all of our buys, we are prioritizing partners with increased transparency where we can gain access to data that gives visibility not only into last touch attribution in this space, but really as many touches as possible to show a more holistic consumer path to conversion. And then having that data lets us understand a propensity for duplicate conversions between CTV and programmatic buys and direct IO buys, which ultimately allows us to reduce our frequency across CTV, display, native, online video channels, really everywhere we're buying. It looks like we might have lost Kimberly. Hopefully she'll be back. Welcome back.
Just got dropped off. Sorry about that.
No worries. But yeah, so we really are able to use the measurement that we're able to see through CTV to fine tune our buys and avoid overlap and make sure that our marketing dollars are spent as efficiently as possible to acquire as many net new users as possible based on the outcome we are looking for, which is new subscriptions.
I think something really intriguing that you brought up, Amanda, is understanding where those viewers are too. And I feel like that's a big emphasis for Samsung ads. So understanding what exposure they've had perhaps on linear, as well as now more in that AVOD, SVOD world, and expanding into that and kind of having a holistic understanding of the audience, right? So I would say most brands or even publishers tend to know who their viewers are within their ecosystem, but understanding what that looks like across the entire entertainment ecosystem, I find has been really important to our advertisers. And so when they understand, okay, here's the unduplicated reach that I'm getting, how do I reach those that I'm maybe missing in some of my other spends? And then how do I have that sort of outcome-based component there to I would say like move them through the funnel, right? And make them aware of my services, and then obviously kind of close that loop. So I think that the insights piece is a really important piece, and there's the measurement and that full funnel signal is really a key part of it that partners like Kochava will provide. But I think just understanding how they play across the entire entertainment ecosystem is another really important feature and need in CTV today.
So I see that I have been remiss in not mentioning this, but we have a couple of polls open. And the polls, if you see your items over on the right of your screen, you have the chat and the Q&A. The polls are there. We'd love to have everyone jump in and answer those if they would. We can see the results in real time. And then there's also some Q&A coming in, and we're going to be, oh wow, look at that. That's fun to watch it in real time. We're going to be answering those questions here shortly as well, but we want to jump into a short time of just looking at opportunities and best practices in CTV. I can't turn this poll off because it's too interesting. I was going to reshare my screen again, but this is kind of fun to watch. Looks like lots of advertisers increasing spend this year. Cool. Okay, so we do want to talk a little bit about opportunities and best practices for this audience. We want to understand how advertisers can capitalize on the new developments and just, really make the most of their ad spend across this channel. Either of you want to jump in on that, Abriana or Amanda?
I'm trying to find the exact question that we're referring to. Was there a specific one that we can?
Well, let's see.
Your question.
Yeah, I think, you may have covered it in some of your other answers. I know that we're down to kind of our last topic, primary topic 3, and just looking at unique insights and capabilities on specific audiences to inform best practices for advertisers. And if you've already covered it, that's okay too. We can skip on.
Well, I think that it's really important to think about, again, how can you match the maximum amount of your, maybe it's your CRM data, for example, with a CTV platform. So understanding the scale that the CTV platform offers you is really important. So I would say that's definitely one thing that you would want to understand. And the other is, what are the other data and insights that your platform can help connect you with? So understanding your audience, I think, is the first really big component. And our advertisers, I know, do an amazing job of understanding who their buyers are. but sometimes understanding how they behave on the television or within like the Samsung universe is a completely different thing. So what kind of genres are they engaging with? What ads have they already seen? How do I make sure that my frequency is where I feel like is best? So I think all of those things are things to start to take into consideration. But also it's more of having a really specific outcome that you're trying to achieve. I feel like what happens that trips, whether it's a publisher or a brand up a little bit sometimes in the CTV space, is having maybe 3 or 4 different objectives with one campaign. And a lot of times that just doesn't work really well from my experience. I think that it's having one clear objective and saying, okay, this is how we're going to measure it, and this is the performance that we can gauge it against. So we've done a lot of testing, for example, with our models, where we say, okay, for the performances we are seeing now based on just standard traditional targeted advertising versus our smart outcomes models, we are see 6x performance improvements. So I think it's really having kind of that baseline that you can compare it to and work with that CTV platform to understand would be sort of my top items for efficacy and best practices.
Okay. And then Amanda, I know you had some interesting items on unguaranteed inventory, and I'm going to jump into a slide as well, but I'd love to hear about that from you. We have a little bit of data that shows behavior over CTV that's different than over mobile, and just want to share that with advertisers as well. So I'll jump into that slide, but please feel free to tell us a little bit more about that unguaranteed inventory.
Yeah, so it's been an interesting space, and I've been in streaming TV for about 5 years now, and so it has been a really innovative space where we've been able to work with partners on things that we want to see and really help design ad products. So one of the things that we were interested in was kind of replicating traditional direct response TV linear buys, and so we approached a lot of our partners about the ability to purchase like unguaranteed remnant inventory and have it mirror that traditional linear strategy. And so we were able to work with a lot of our partners on how we could do that, and really like that's just kind of a way of buying and more of a rate thing, but it really helped with supplementing our plans and making sure that we're maximizing reach while still getting maximum efficiency. In terms of other best practices, really, like Abriana said, it starts with understanding your audience. So like any marketing strategy, you have to know who that target demographic is, and then you have to know what they're looking for and what's going to resonate with them. So once we know that, we really leverage advanced targeting via CTV to make sure that we're reaching those customers. And one little tip that I have is, watch your data fees, because it's very easy to layer on targeting, to layer on capabilities. We see a lot of partners who have a lot of new capabilities with ads, like even dynamic ads, QR codes. You can overlay with, a download or install with ACR data. There's a lot of fun stuff that's happening, but additional fees can sometimes make it less of a positive return on your investment than just simpler targeting. So make sure to watch the data fees. Sometimes less is more. Definitely make sure you're creating high quality and engaging creative, because the CTV space is on those TVs and it's on the big screen. You need to be really conscious that it is high quality and compelling, and it'll keep viewers engaged. And you can make it interactive. So whereas it's not always the right move to make it interactive, there are other times when it makes a lot of sense. Like we actually have seen a lot of success with using QR codes with different campaigns. And then frequency capping. I would say that's a really big one, and a great capability with the CTV space is, like I said earlier, being able to make sure that you're maximizing for reach. And you can also consider like using a DSP partner to place different PG or PMP buys so that you can really see how to maximize the dollars. And then just keep testing. Don't trust anything. Don't trust your CPA or CPI data. No offense, Brianna, from your partners, but you want to be triangulating based on different data points. So certainly work with your partners, use their capabilities, work with Kochava, see what Kochava data is saying, but then also be incrementality testing and always looking for new ways to kind of pressure test what you're doing. So at Sling and Dish, we not only use our MMP partners and source data, but we also have MTA, MMM, incrementality tests, and it's always on. So always be testing. So that was a little long-winded, but I think there's a lot in this space and there's a lot you can do. And those are really our best practices.
All really good stuff. And, some of it, like knowing your audience, of course, is not going to be a surprise to our advertiser audience here, but it's so critical and it's always the most important place to start. So thank you for that. This last item I want to just touch on is some data that we have that shows a difference in behavior between mobile and OTT or CTV. And so the orange line is the performance curve for OTT and CTV compared to the dark green line, which is mobile. And you see that the look back window for mobile is really that 24-hour period. And that is not the case for CTV. The behavior is completely different, and advertisers need to understand that so that they can plan accordingly and have their settings set up correctly. We don't have a ton of time, and I definitely want to hit on some of the questions that are coming in, but I wondered, Brooke, if you could just briefly comment on this from your perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. We just had a few best practices tips I wanted to cover, and I'll make it quick. Like Kimberly just mentioned, there's a broader halo effect for CTV compared to mobile. We see that performance line drop off a lot more slowly. This is a graph that our Foundry team put together also, so just a call out to them. They're amazing. And they can act as an extension of data science for our clients when it comes to those more complicated recommendations or analyses. But the point being, consider your look back windows with your CTV campaigns. In mobile, we sort of have had the historic recommendation of keeping it 24 hours or shorter. On CTV, maybe consider extending them out longer for those impressions. Again, just with those PubSuite advanced publishers, we can go, at least in the Kochava world, we can go up to 14 days for impression look back windows, which is super helpful for CTV campaigns. So talk to your MMP, see about that, see what the options are. Secondly, an MMP like Kochava is only as good as the data that we get. So make sure that you have all of your apps set up. If you want to track, if you're running CTV driving to mobile, driving to web, driving to on-device, same LRD device, make sure that those apps are all set up within your MMP and the signal is coming to us. So we are getting those installs, we're getting the events that you care about so that we can then tie them back to this ad signal that you're running. And of course, reach out to your CSM if you need help with any of that. And then lastly, keep in mind that CTV best practices aren't always the default within the MMP. In Kochava, we don't default to a 14-day impression look back. That would be a little bit ridiculous for a mobile campaign. So look at your default settings for attribution, think about what makes sense for your specific campaigns, and then talk to your CSM about what those configurability options are. Do we need to make sure impression-based re-engagement attribution is turned on? Do we want a longer look back window? Do we want to turn on IP-only matching for something like a cross-device attribution? There are a lot of options, especially within Kochava. It can be almost overwhelming how configurable all of our attribution settings are. So reach out to the team that supports you, and yeah, they'll be able to help you not just with best practices, but also how to get those settings in place.
Great, thank you. So I would love to have my team here that's supporting in the background. Could you put those poll results up for us? I think you may be able to have that jump onto the stage, but I'm not sure. There we go. So final results on that, 70% of the audience here today, which has been right around 116 people during the webinar, are already advertising on CTV and planning to increase it. And then do we have results on the second poll as well? So this one was, are you including CTV as part of your upfronts buying this year? And this one's kind of split, interestingly. Those who are doing upfronts, 38% said yes. We had 19% who said no, and then 42 almost 43%, who said we're not doing any upfronts. Aubriana, this poll was for you. I think you were looking for this data. So that's super interesting to see that split.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm just saying, I think it's interesting, and I wonder how many of that 45% that are not doing upfronts or now it's 41.67% did upfronts last year. I think there's been some really interesting shifts in the past 2 years in CTV there.
That's cool. So let's jump into some questions. I think we've got a couple queued up, and I believe we can get those put on the screen. Awesome. Okay, so any thought on shoppable ads on CTV and OTT? Who wants to tackle that?
I can jump in. We're starting to test out shoppable ads right now. We announced a partnership with Curve Interactive, and so we have been running those, I think, for maybe a couple of months. And so I think, we're sort of dipping our toe in the water. I feel that there's a little bit of a consumer behavior trend and change that would have to take place, right? So one, making sure that, our customers really and viewers really interested in creating or purchasing through their television. Do I want to purchase a food delivery service on my television and have it show up? I don't know. I think that's still a little TBD, but we definitely are entering that and offering that. We also have, I know, Amanda, you were mentioning like QR codes. We've done some of those as well, where you can kind of scan to get specific content or move, from the big screen to your device where you can still engage with that brand, which I think is a really interesting way, because a lot of us are multitasking, and so you might be shopping while you're streaming. And so I think there's definitely some play that we're going to see continue to grow there.
Interesting. Anything to add on that, Amanda?
No, I think we've done the most probably with QR codes, and we've seen a lot of success. I mean, if you watched the Super Bowl this year, one of the most talked about ads was the QR code. People are definitely after COVID, people are very familiar with that process and how to use a QR code. So we've seen a lot of success there, both on our CTV ads and then also on our static ads on streaming devices as well.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, we've got all sorts of questions coming in now. I did want to mention, though, too, we've seen a huge increase in demand from advertisers for QR codes. Kochava has a smart links technology that we enable that really allows a lot more flexibility and power behind those QR codes. And that's actually coming out this next year as a standalone product that advertisers can use directly as well in our platform. So that's going to be exciting. But yes, it's amazing, the resurgence of a very old technology that just kind of came back in such a huge way and now is sort of everywhere and on TV. So interesting. Let's see. Okay, we have settled on one question instead of the three that were up there. Has anyone tested send to phone like Hulu does while logged in? Question from Matt.
Hi, Matt. Good to see you here. We have not tested send to phone, and I think that Samsung obviously is probably a well-positioned player to do some of this testing. But we are also very focused on ensuring that the viewing experience is enjoyable, and it's not, I would say, like there's not friction whenever you're in that entertainment space. So I think it has to be sure to be probably tested with a group of internal users first and getting some, feedback, because voice of customer is one of our main responsibilities and concerns, as all of us want to have an enjoyable experience when we're being entertained, right? But I think that it is an interesting one that we should continue to further explore.
Yeah, we haven't specifically tested it either, but we've done not from advertising, but we've done a lot of different flows where we send customers to sign up flows on their mobile device. And we've also done a lot of cross-device retargeting from CTV to mobile and even like laptop, desktop. And it's really interesting because we do see a lot of success with even just the basic sign-up flows and sending to mobile there. So yes and no.
Sounds good. Okay, thank you for that question. Next one is from Vera. Anything you would recommend from the creative perspective for those different in-streaming ads?
I can jump in here. I mean, I think, like we said earlier, making sure it's high resolution is very key. Making sure it's engaging and leveraging best practices. And if you have things like a QR code that you want to put in front of customers, like it does work. They will use it. And then the other thing that I would say with creative is a lot of partners in the CTV space, it's the same cost for a 15-second as a 30-second ad. And so you can leverage that long form media in a way that's maybe more efficient than other linear OLB buys. So it's a place where we're able to tell a longer story about our brands and still maintain cost savings and reach and efficiency.
That's a great insider tip.
It is. My only recommendation would be to ensure that your creative is aligned with your KPI. So if the value proposition in your creative is perhaps geared towards specific content versus, maybe specifically like downloading a new app or subscribing, you may not necessarily have the best outcome from what we've seen.
Okay, next question is from Milani. What do we need to have CCTV campaigns with you? I don't know if that was who that was directed towards, Milani, but maybe we can have everyone answer.
I mean, from a measurement perspective, if you would want to be a Kochava client, that would get you access to the type of being able to set up the tracking side of things. So making sure that you have either an integration with an advanced partner like Samsung, where we're going to do that claim request response system to ensure that Samsung is getting your app or user action data that they need for attribution, and then we get their claims back so that we get the information Kochava needs to perform attribution according to your settings. So once you're a Kochava client, you would get a CSM like myself, who would help you actually set up all of those campaigns and understand where all of the toggles are to control any kind of look back windows or attribution rules you might want to put in place. And then that would get you the measurement data and visibility into that campaign that you're looking for. I don't know if that's a question, but I'll start there.
Great. Let's jump to the next one. So this one's from Noah. Are you seeing brands wanting to be in the custom content space on FAST on top of the media buy? And are there genres of programming that they are looking to attach themselves to?
From our perspective, yes. Custom content is a huge priority, and it's something at Sling that we actually don't have a lot of. So it's a really interesting space to be Sling, where you're all about distribution and working with programming partners in a world where original content is king. So what we've worked with a lot of different partners on is how do we sponsor custom content. We have done some different campaigns to align with all sorts of genres depending on who we're targeting. In the FAST space, like for Sling, we see like crime do really well, the true crime documentary and content series. We also see video on demand, but I think it really just depends on the campaign, what content you're pushing, and what the focus of the campaign and the KPI of the campaign is in terms of programming that they're trying to attach to. Because we also see a lot of brands coming to Sling for sports partnerships when they don't have sports.
I think this is a really interesting topic. We've seen some long form, like branded storytelling come out recently. And I think that there's more and more brands that are going to be interested in either custom content or even just appending themselves to channel bundling. So for example, if you were, a hardware store, you may want to be on some of those home improvement channels and bundling those together. So kind of reaching consumers and viewers when they're in that specific frame of mind has been a great opportunity. I think, again, custom content, we don't own any content, but we are distributing it, as Amanda mentioned, kind of similar. So I think that we're starting to explore other opportunities and ways to provide unique experiences to our advertisers.
Cool. Okay, this one looks like a Kochava question. Does Kochava or any MMP in general help in campaign recommendations based on outcome-based performance? Brooke, do you want to tackle that one?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I can't speak for all of the MMPs, but I can definitely speak for Kochava. My team is mostly focused on actually getting the data in and out, getting the attribution results over to the advertiser, and making sure those pipes are all set up correctly. But we do have our Foundry team, which is a data science team, essentially. I think that they are more than that in a lot of ways, but they're amazing. So if you do have an analysis in mind that you need that would be helpful to you, that's a service that Kochava can definitely provide. And that's the team that I typically turn to when I have an advertiser who's looking for more of a recommendation or, analysis, best practice, that kind of thing. If it's not something that's just sort of super basic in terms of what the CSM team sees across the board, we do have a specific team that handles that sort of more advanced analysis. Not necessarily outcome-based performance, but it does rely on cost data. We also have always-on incrementality product, which I think is super interesting. It's one of our newer offerings, and it does give you sort of directional spend advice in terms of like, should we increase spend, decrease spend? And so I think that's another tool that we have within our product offerings that can help in terms of like actual campaign recommendations, at least directionally. Kimberly, if you have anything to add, please.
I think you covered it. It's great. Do we have one more question we want to jump on? How about measurement and impact of traditional linear? This is from Mark. Great question.
Yeah.
I mean, go ahead.
So I would say it's been exciting in traditional linear. I'd say the way we're doing it at Sling is with a lot of ACR data partnerships. So we are able to use ACR data from partners to see, to do kind of similar matching in terms of conversions. So you can look to ACR data. You can also use a variety of different measurement partners, like TransUnion for call center data. There's a lot of different ways to back into linear measurement these days. And it's been really interesting to look at it alongside CTV measurement and try to compare apples to apples.
Just adding to that, I think that obviously having that ACR data from a CTV standpoint, I think has really allowed for the measurement of traditional linear to come into effect, right? Before, it's been very much a reach play. So did I reach my target demographic and audience, or using third-party brand lift studies and measurement studies, which can be challenging whenever you're just working off more of like a panel basis. So I think that the impact that CTV has had with traditional linear and utilizing our proprietary data at Samsung has really empowered our advertisers as well.
It gets fun too, because then you can start doing things like use ACR data to retarget customers who have seen linear ads, whether it's yours or somebody else's. But with all the advents of this new space in the ecosystem and how the partners are leaning into different capabilities with video and specifically on like the big glass, there's a lot more capabilities to look at how they're engaging with each other and how you can complement the two strategies.
Fantastic. Okay, so I think we're going to close out the questions. I think we got most of them. We'd be happy to follow up with anyone who is still looking to have a question answered after the fact. I want to thank everyone so much for joining us today. This was really fun. I think we covered a lot of really valuable content for customers who are interested in digging in a little bit more on CTV. You will receive a poll afterwards. We would really love to get your feedback on what you liked, what you didn't like, maybe what you'd like to learn more about next time if we have a chance to do this again. I know that Aubriana and Amanda both joined us last winter for our summit here at Kochava, which we do in February. And I'm hoping to get them back again for this year. It's usually a really fun event. And Amanda has to come back and ski with all the guys because she kind of slayed them on the slopes there, and I know that it'd be good to have a rematch. She's a super fast skier. So that would be fun. All right, well, thank you all, and hope to see you next time on another webinar. Thanks for joining us today.